Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first upload on the Texans Jacob YouTube channel. I know we've been doing YouTube between Texans Probe and other stuff, but this is kind of my own channel to do, Rockets Texans content whenever I feel, kind of go in depth with more of just myself, just kind of my opinions on certain things. Obviously, like the Texans Probe will be going well this season. Me and Drew are still planning on doing that, obviously, and we're going to be doing a lot of that this year. Definitely excited about that. But this is kind of more also Rocket stuff and more, Texans, just kind of not daily content, but more shorter content that, y'all can kind of enjoy as we get into the seasons. And in the offseason, like we're going to discuss here with the Rockets. The Rockets have had a very interesting free agency and offseason, obviously starting with Kevin Durant, extending Ime Udoka. But today we're going to be talking about the free agency moves that they've made, which really is just two so far. This will get uploaded on what's tomorrow. So it'll get uploaded on Wednesday. So there might be something that happens between now and tomorrow, but right now it's just Dorian Finney-Smith and Clint Capella. And I think these are very exciting signings for the Rockets. Dorian Finney-Smith can provide defense and shooting for the Rockets. Clint Capella can provide rim protection and rim running, which is something that the Rockets really haven't had. So there's a lot to be excited about for the Rockets. Starting with Dorian Finney-Smith, there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot to be excited about. He's essentially your Dylan Brooks replacement this season. And while Dylan Brooks, did some things really well for the Rockets, he also was pretty poor at certain things. I thought he took some bad shots in isolation in certain situations where, you kind of just want a guy to know his role and not take shots like that, where he would take those type of shots, fade away mid ranges, not efficient shots. And and defensively, he was kind of bad off the ball. He'd get backdoored a lot. He would lose shooters pretty consistently, which was a problem, especially against Golden State, where Buddy Hield really lit them up later on in that series, especially game seven. And, Dylan Brooks was the main culprit of that. So, replacing him with Dorian Finney Smith, who also is a much better rim protector from the wing spot. He was top 10 in rim protection for wings last season, where I want to say Dylan Brooks was probably near the top. He gave up about 72% around the rim, which is not good. Dorian Finney Smith was around 50 something. And then top 10 of that list, you got three Rockets now with Kevin Durant, Dorian Finney Smith, and Amen Thompson, who's top three on the list. So the Rockets defensively, especially at the wing spot, are pretty loaded. And there's a lot to be excited about there. But Dorian Finney-Smith doesn't just provide defense; he's a very good shooter. I mean, especially last season, he progressed a lot shooting wise. He started off the season even shooting well in Brooklyn. And I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a 40% guy next season for the Rockets. He might be around 36, 37. Still, he is a good shooter and can make shots pretty consistently for the Rockets when left open. When you get these guys that are going to go help down, Amen Thompson driving or Alperen Şengün getting high post touches, or obviously Kevin Durant just scoring anywhere he wants to score. So that type of stuff, Dorian Finney-Smith is probably the most reliable wing shooter the Rockets have now outside of Kevin Durant, him or Jabari Smith. But Jabari's kind of been so up and down so far in his career. So it's tough to really gauge where he's at. But Finney Smith's been pretty consistent. So Finney Smith is also, one of these guys where his impact doesn't really show up on the statistics all the time, but his net rating has been incredible all throughout his career. In Dallas, when they went to the Western Conference Finals, I believe he was very excellent in that series, in those series for them. Last year for the Lakers, he got traded there, and he had a plus 12 net swing. So I want to say they were plus 10 when Dorian Finney-Smith was on the court in the regular season, and they were minus 2 when he was off. So his minutes were key for the Lakers last season. He was really, really good for them. And I think he's a very good starting candidate for the Rockets if they want to start him over a guy like Jabari Smith. I think he provides, like I said, a level of shooting, a level of perimeter defense, point of attack defense. He can provide some rim protection. He can do a lot of things for the Rockets. He kind of reminds me of when the Rockets, signed two guys in 2017, PJ Tucker and Luka Mute. He reminds me a lot of Luka Mute, if y'all remember him. One of my guys for the Rockets back in the day. He can shoot. He can do a little bit of everything on the court. He's a very versatile guy, and so that is very nice to have for the Rockets. And I think he's going to be a very key player for the Rockets going into the playoffs, where he's an experienced guy that's been to these playoffs before and knows how to play in the playoffs. And moving on, the Rockets also signed, former Rockets big man Clint Capella to I want to say it was a 3-year, $21 million deal, fully guaranteed. So this was kind of one for me. that was a little bit head scratching at when I saw it. I did not expect them to sign a guy like Clint Capella, but the more you get into it, the more it's understandable and the more that it makes sense. The Rockets really have needed a rim runner, not needed, but they could have used a rim runner and rim protector. And while Clint Capella is not the same rim runner and rim protector he was in Houston, he still can provide, some of that in Houston these next couple years. I posted a stat on my Twitter yesterday, and he had caught 82 lobs the last 2 seasons for Atlanta. The Rockets' two big men, which is Şengün and Adams, have caught one the last 2 years. So that is pretty crazy to think about. And Clint Capella does provide you with a new thing. I think the Rockets this season are really going to dive into the double big type of lineups, that they ran a lot in the playoffs last year. And you just really cannot rely on Steven Adams to play more than probably 60 games in the regular season. It's just you don't really want to wear him out like that. You don't want him to play heavy minutes like that. He's an older guy. He's dealt with injury. So having Clint Capella allows you to, okay, when Steven Adams doesn't play on a back-to-back, let's say, you still can run some double big because you have a guy like Clint Capella who can bring you things that can play with Alper and Şengün on the court at the same time. And that is, a very exciting thing to think about because the Rockets really didn't have that last year. Jack Landale was very bad in the minutes he played last season. So getting him out, bringing in Clint Capella is definitely a big upgrade. Clint Capella is still a very good rebounder as well, which the Rockets, I think they're very keen on just dominating the glass, and Clint Capella provides that for the Rockets. Clint Capella is a very good rebounder. He's been a very good rebounder throughout his career. He was one of the best offensive rebounders. I want to say he had a 12 something percent offensive rebound rate, which is near the top in the league, if not the top in the league last season for Atlanta. So he still can get these rebounds, kick it out to the Rockets' new shooters. You hit a guy like Amen Thompson in the dunker spot. That type of stuff, Clint Capella has always been pretty good at. He doesn't have much offensive bag. He never has, from Houston. He was more mainly a lob threat offensively, but he kind of he knows his role and he's going to play that well. He's a third center for this team, and for a third center for $7 million when Jock was going to make 8. It's definitely an upgrade for them there. Like I said, he can play a role that the Rockets didn't have, and you can get into it where Alperen Şengün really defended the perimeter pretty well last season in these double big type of lineups, and that's probably why you're going to see more double big this season because they know they can do it when Alperen Şengün can guard the perimeter and Steven Adams or Clint Capella can guard the paint. And that's, a very exciting thing to think about that the Rockets really like they found what they're good at and they're going to continue to do it. Obviously, the guard play I know is a kind of a question for a lot of people. I'm a big Reed Shepherd believer. I think the guard play will be all right, but I really think in this modern day NBA, the wings and the centers are really what you win games off of, and the Rockets are really diving into that now. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in to this first video. I know it's kind of a short one. I have other videos planned here talking about some Cam Whitmore and Reed Shepherd stuff. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe to the new channel, and I will see y'all next time.